everyone, so today I'm filming a video and it is going to be my study tips video, and these are the ones that I get most excited for because I feel like organization is one of the more simple aspects of back to school, but when I feel like it comes to study tips, studying is where it gets difficult. So I don't want to keep you guys held up too long because I have a ton of tips, and these are also split up into different sections if you watch my organization video. Let's get started. The first tip, or the first section of tip, is just kind of some general study tips, and let's just jump into those. So the first one is to not procrastinate. I know this is like way easier said than done, but plan out your study session, figure out what you're going to do, and don't procrastinate. Just start doing it. Just tell yourself you're going to sit down, get it done, and then move on afterwards. You know what I mean? And it just feels really good to just go ahead, get it done, instead of pushing it off and feeling guilty for pushing it off. And the next tip also kind of relates, have all your supplies with you. This is going to make it much easier to not procrastinate because you will know everything that you need is there. You have no reason to not get started. The next 3 tips are all related, and it is to use the Pomodoro technique. So what you're going to do is work for 25 minutes, then take a 5-minute break. Then, after 3 rounds of doing 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes break, take a 30-minute break. So this is a little bit of a longer break, but it's a much better way to study, I promise you. And when you come back from your breaks, review any material that you were working on previously to refresh your memory and keep going if you end in the, like while you're working in the middle of an assignment. But also, in that 25 minutes, try and finish the assignment. So you don't want to go so fast that you're missing things and getting things wrong, but you want to go quick enough that you are getting things done in a timely manner. So kind of racing the clock to see how much you can get done while still doing a good job in a timely manner. And then right before you're done with that assignment and you come back from a break, review everything, refresh your memory, and then move on. Now let's move on to the second section of tips. These are tips you're going to want to use for before you go to class or listen to the lecture or look at the PowerPoint. I'm going to explain that a little bit more. If you're going to class, you're going to have a class, and you're going to have your lecture in class. But if you're doing online classes, you're either going to listen to a recorded lecture that may go along with a PowerPoint or something. You know, it just depends on the teacher. Or some teachers just post PowerPoints of the important information, and you never hear their voice at all. So whatever that may be, you're going to want to read the book before you listen to the lecture, look at that PowerPoint, or go to class. It's going to help you know what is going on. The next tip is to explain everything in your own words. I find that when I'm listening to a lecture, that is a lot easier than when I'm reading from a book. So really try and just summarize everything, and I'm going to do a video on taking notes. So stay tuned for that video. It'll be up, I think, next after this video. So whenever this one is posted, the next Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, whichever uploading day precedes the one this one goes up on, that one will be up. I hope you guys watch it because I'm super excited for that one too. And I'm just going to move on to the next tip because I lost my train of thought. Read the overviews and summaries of the chapter to know what's important, and the next tip also goes along with that, which is to look at the main concepts, or if the teacher gives you a sheet of what's important, it just all depends on the class, then go ahead and read those. It's going to give you a general idea of what's important. I've had some textbooks that give you like a list of what's important, and then I've also had some that have like overviews at the end that summarize the whole chapter, which is a really good place to look for big specific facts and then take take notes on those things, because those are what's important. And the last tip in this section is to color code your notes, and I don't mean you can do it however you want it. Some people may say to highlight the people in one color and the events in another, but I honestly just don't see the point in that. Like, I feel like they're all important, and I never have quite understood why it's necessary to highlight them, because I'm never just studying the events. I'm kind of studying like everything as a whole because it's all related. So I mean, if that works for you, good for you, and I'm glad it does, but it just doesn't work for me. So the way I color code is I take most of the information down in black, then the things I want to stand out I do in a color, and then for each chapter I switch up the color of the pen. So for one chapter I'm going to use black and red, and then the next one I'll use black and pink, or black and blue, or whatever, black and orange. Doesn't matter, but as long as you're just switching up the color, it's just going to make things a little more fun. The next two tips are in their own little section, and this is the third section, and it is in-class tips. I just have two, and they're really short. So the first one is to pay attention, especially if the teacher doesn't have any PowerPoints listed, and they just talk and talk and talk and talk with maybe a few bullet points on the board. Pay attention, because if you don't, you will be screwed, because that's what happened to me in my history class, and it's bad news. And when you're in class, don't rewrite information. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. Do rewrite it. Don't rewrite it in your rewritten class notes, like your formal copy of class notes, because there's no point in rewriting information twice. Write it down in class, just to make sure you have it down so you can go back in your book notes and mark it down, if that makes sense. So you can say, oh, this was in both, it's super important, but don't rewrite it in both sets of notes, just because they're going to get real redundant, and that is not the point of having two separate sets of notes. The next section of tips is related to what to do after class. So the first thing we're going to do is within 24 hours of having class, you're going to want to rewrite those notes and make them look all pretty. Your goal is to condense and transform the information so it's just more easily understandable. And you're also going to use the note-taking tips, which I'm going to list in the description bar. I keep mine in my planner on a little post-it right here. So the first one is, what are the key ideas? The second one is, what terms and ideas are new to me? How would I define them? And then, how do the ideas relate to what I already know? These are really good questions to ask yourself while you're taking notes, or rewriting notes, taking notes, whatever, doesn't matter. They're just really good to help you know figure out what's important and really process the information, especially after class, because you already heard the information, you've already took it in once, and now you're going to look at it, really analyze it, and think about it, and that's going to really help you in the long run. Also, make your own study guides. If you're not into rewriting your own notes, then I don't know what to tell you, because I really recommend doing it. Anyways, making your own study guides or rewriting your notes is a really good way. You can also rewrite them again after you've already rewrote them when it gets closer to the test, to really pick out any information the professor has further stressed in other lectures of super important things if you want. So going back through and picking out the most important information from those, do that too. That can help as well. That tip made any sense. The last tip in this section is to review everything from class that night. It's super important to do this so the information is re-put into your brain, and I like to do this right before bed. It's just going to help you remember everything that you learned a little bit better. The next two tips are related and in the same section and are related to the weekend. Kind of. You should spend 30 minutes every weekend reviewing each class. So 30 minutes for each individual class. And you're going to set up a weekly time to do this. I recommend on the weekends. The next section of tips are related to preparing for the test. First, you want to make a study plan. I like to do that on my monthly planner, considering tests are big events and they're already on there. So I make a study plan. And what you're going to do this is write down the test date, and then so you know when the test is happening, and then you're going to chunk out all of the information by, you know, doing like a chapter a night, or just kind of dividing it out into even chunks that are way more manageable. And so you're basically just you're going to decide when, how, and what you're going to do for each night leading up to the test. Now, how you decide to chunk this out is up to you. I kind of like to do like the night before. I like to read everything. The night before, I don't like to spend a lot of time on it, so I don't spend a chunk of time on it at all. I just read the information that night before bed and go to bed and go take the test. So I kind of have a break from the information the night before. but I still read it once before I go to bed because I find that helps. But then, so not the night before, but all the days leading up to that, I've chunked out the information and spent good chunks of time practicing, or like doing that information, learning it. If that makes any sense. If the teacher tells you things that are going to be on the test, or gives you a sheet of things that are important or something because they like you, or they like the class or something, I don't know, use that to your advantage. Study the information. Using the textbook quizzes can help you gauge, I almost said gauge, can help you gauge how much you know. Now, if the teacher doesn't pull a lot of information from the textbook for tests specifically, this might not help you, but if they do, then this will help. To study for the test, you can make index cards. I find this is really only, well, it's a way to quiz yourself on the information if you have the time, but I really only find that this is helpful for things that I need to remember specific information, like flashcards, specific facts, things like that. I actually had a psychology class last year first semester where we only were quizzed on the vocabulary, so that is how I studied for the test, as I made index cards and just studied the heck out of those. That's one way to study versus any of the other things I've just told you. And the last tip in this section is to draw pictures to explain the concepts and then explain those. So you're going to think of a concept and you're going to draw a picture, but people aren't going to understand that picture. So if you want to tell someone how it relates to the subject and how it can help them, you're going to want to explain it. So it's really making you think about that subject and pick it apart, which helps you. And maybe it'll help someone else by showing them that picture, and maybe it'll make sense to them. I don't know, but I feel like if you know, this may help you, especially if you're a visual learner. The last 3 tips are just kind of little fun things that I found interesting or thought were fun. The first thing is that writing something down is the equivalent to reading it 7 times. So I don't care what type of learner you are, write it down at least once, because it's, you know, it's a lot better than trying to read your textbook 7 times over, okay? I recommend you just write it down at least once. For every single class, study a little bit every day, and whether that's before bed, like reading it, you know, reading over all the new information right before bed, or whenever, just kind of taking a little time each day to review that subject so everything stays fresh. And the 32nd and final tip is to reward yourself. I don't care when or how much, just do it because it's going to make you feel good and you'll feel accomplished. So that is my last tip. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe. Also comment if these were helpful. Give me feedback so I can make things better. I hope you guys enjoyed and that you have a nice day, night, evening, lunch, whenever you're watching this, whatever you're doing. I hope it's great, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.